Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Americans of all stripes. My name is Lauren Collin, and you are joining another live stream and soon to be podcast of Revolution Today. And I am excited to have you. And I got lots to talk about. So I think hopefully this becomes both more interactive in that I hope as the audience grows, you all interact more with me, but also that you'll probably see me a little more on the computer, looking things up, perhaps on the fly, jumping around. But that just seems to be the way it gets done these days. And I'm excited for it. When I was first behind a microphone a long time ago, I actually was the sports director at KLA, UCLA's student radio. And that was my first time behind the mic. And I also got to, in the Daily Bruin my senior year, give some amazing advice. Your radio voice is your normal voice. So as best as I know, everyone, this is my normal voice. I guess between you and me, there's a microphone. But they used to also say that I had a face for radio. Those are my friends. But now it is both a combination of video and sound. And while this live stream will become a podcast where it's pretty much just sound everywhere, a lot of the other touch points, as you all are aware, the TikToks, the Instagrams, YouTube Shorts, it's all about the video. And it's quite an amazing change over the, we'll call it 26 years since I last stopped in radio. But it is good to be back behind the microphone. That used to just be a sports show. But this Revolution Today, this is about all of us. Every single inhabitant of the United States of America. And I really mean that. Whether you were born here, whether you immigrated here, if you are here, and it doesn't matter your status, citizen, naturalized citizen, if you have a green card, or if you might not have any documents, you're here. And in my mind, when you're here, that makes you an American. That makes you someone who at least is open to the idea of our ideals. And I think it is safe to say, unless you are an apologist, which there are many, that we have never, this country, ever lived up to the ideals. In fact, as we've talked about, and we'll talk about over and over, the white men, the wealthy white men, they had property. They knew when they were writing these great ideals down that they were not for everybody. Those ideals were not for their wives and daughters. Those ideals were not for the enslaved populations. Those ideas were not for the misnamed Indians, Native Americans. And over time, we have slowly but imperfectly, and sometimes heading backwards on the way forward, slowly that arc of justice that Martin Luther King Jr. Talked about, we slowly get closer to justice. But it's a slow and bumpy road. And if you are believing that we can get there faster, then it's time for you to get off the sideline, where I was for most of my life, and join and make the case of why we should all move faster towards justice for every single one of us, towards maximum liberty for all of us. And if you are one of those people who stands in the way of maximum liberty for all of us, well, I want to engage with you. I want to understand why you think liberty is only for certain people, or that liberty needs to be narrowly defined and mostly in a way that conforms to what you think is moral and ethical. Because I am here to tell you, you can believe whatever you want. It is core to the American values. It is core to my values. It is core to what I want Revolution Today and this movement to accomplish. You can believe whatever you want, but you cannot force your beliefs on the rest of us through the rubric of maximum liberty for all. And we touched on maximum liberty in the previous episodes. And I guess without being ashamed, it's what we're going to talk about a lot, because that's what we're here for. In the previous live streams, I really went through and discussed what things I had already written down, right? So the first one was sort of this overarching cultural with some political discussion of where I think we as a country and we as individuals should move. And the last episode was really focused on politics and especially policy. Going forward, I really want to take the day's news, or even from the few past days, and examine it through the lens of achieving maximum liberty for all of us. So what you will not find here is what you can get lots of on YouTube and TikTok, and less on Instagram, a little bit on Threads. And I think the only thing you get on Fox News and MSNBC, and the OANs and the Newsmaxes of the world, what do you get there? You get can you believe the Republicans did this? Ha 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 ha. How stupid they must be. What are they thinking? Ha 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 ha. Something to laugh at and ridicule. And you also get, can you believe what those Democrats did? Ha ha ha. They are so stupid. Everything they do should only be ridiculed, should only be mocked. And there's plenty of that, and I consume it. I'm not telling you not to consume it, but I am here to both criticize it and give a new way of addressing the actual issues we face without ridicule, without mocking, without making fun of, by engaging one-on-one. So Mark is a prime example on Twitch with those comments. Neither are more stupid or more dangerous than the other. Again, it's what is it that you believe? And what I hope to find is that there are many, many more of us that believe in each other, that we don't believe in having to choose a team and pick a side, because that's what those teams want. And maybe your team fully encompasses every total thing you imagine, and you're happy on that team. And then there's nothing for you to change. But by and large, we absolutely hear from each other that we don't think this system is working. And to me, part of the system not working is those parties and the structure with which they exist, the constitutional structure which they exist. And we can get on the side of, if we agree we want change, then the side we have to get on is not choosing sides. So again, I don't care if you have a D or an R or an I or some other title or no title next to your name when you go to vote. But I do care that you are an American citizen and that you care about this country and yourself and your place in it, and that you can ultimately find your happiness here. And we'll talk here in a little bit about, in part, about masculinity, because I think it is this whole alpha talk and beta and sigma and what have you. Again, it's cultural talk like this that stops us from all being great. It's the same as we just saw, I think it was in South Carolina this past weekend, a Klan rally. Again, if you're in the Klan, can you believe this horrible thing that you might not find so horrible? You can. You absolutely can believe whatever you want. My point here, while I would love to persuade you to believe different, is not to tell you what to think. Moreover, it is not to force you what to think or to coerce you what to think. So the win for me would be if you believe you are so right and you get to force and coerce your views on the rest of us, either through intimidation and or the law, that you don't. And you come to that conclusion with me, that you don't get mocked, you don't get ridiculed. People will try and persuade you, and you're more than welcome to try and persuade me why white nationalism is necessary. You have that right. I am all ears. I don't think you will get very far convincing me, but I'm open to hearing you out. And maybe you can do me the same favor back and open your ears and open your heart to, not only do we not need political sides, and this is for everybody, we don't need sides based on our race. We could probably use sides based on our class. We don't need sides based on our race. And it does start with the dominant white culture. We don't have to give things up, but if we're not going to give anything up, we have to make sure that everybody has what we have, which is feeling safe, being able to believe you can present yourself without being judged based on the outside, right? Now, definitely, once you present yourself, your inside, that can be judged. It shouldn't be mocked. It shouldn't be ridiculed. You shouldn't be allowed to exist. And that really ultimately is this discussion here, right? That all 336 million of us Americans, those of us who live within the borders of the United States, should be able to live our own life as we see fit. And I hope through conversation and dialogue, you come around to that. Like I said, if you're already there and you believe it, but you don't act on it, now it's time to certainly become an ally, but really it's time to become an advocate. And join me. This is Revolution Today. It might be here a one-person operation today, but the idea is to grow it. I would love to see a person in every city, in every county, everywhere in this country, in every state, to stand up and advocate for our individual liberties, for our maximum liberty. And if you want to join me, please raise your hand, subscribe, follow, comment when you can, but also let's connect and talk about how we can make this advocacy happen. And I understand there's advocacy happening all over for different things. Again, some people are advocating for white nationalism just this past weekend. There are plenty of people advocating for voting rights. There are people advocating for abortion. There are people advocating for healthcare. There are people advocating to make drugs legal. But what we don't have in my mind is the overall rubric that says all of this falls under maximum liberty for each of us. That each and every one of us is a human being with the inherent dignity of being human. And that while these imperfect men, our founders, gave us these high ideals that they never lived up to, that we to this point have never lived up to, we can. And part of it means we can't fix the past. We cannot fix the genocide against the native peoples. We cannot fix it. The land's not going back. The desecration's not going back. The lives lost are not coming back. But we can say today's a new day, and Native Americans are fully American and deserve to be recognized in the rights of every American. And how do we ensure that? We cannot fix slavery. I mean, talk about imperfect men. It was in the Constitution. And just because we've amended the Constitution, it doesn't mean slavery's out of the Constitution. It's still there. We'll just say ignore those parts. But again, we can't fix. We can't go back in time and undo. And we spend a lot of time wanting to undo. I'm here to talk about the past. I am a history major. I was a history major. I love history. I love the honesty that comes with studying it. But we can't fix it. You can't even pretend what if. No, history's history. It happened. We can be honest about it. We can talk about it, but we can't fix what, with hindsight, and even probably to the contemporaries of those times, was wrong. So slavery was wrong, and it is wrong today. And its history has led to an ongoing horror for many Black Americans. That horror needs to stop. And again, we can't fix the past. So it's about envisioning what we do today. How do we create equity for today? And I have an idea. I believe it is by achieving maximum liberty. Now, maximum liberty for all actually starts with individual responsibility by each. That you really have to understand that to a certain degree, you are alone in this world. You are alone and empowered to make the choices that you have to live with. The consequences, good or bad, that you have to live with. And if you're not happy with those consequences of the choices that you made, then you have a place and a space where you can continue to make new choices. So, yeah, we have to break with the past. We will not forget the past. And I'm very much looking forward to deep dives on our history because it's an amazing history. It's a brutal history. It is a history also of hope and change and achieving great things. But we can talk about all of it, and we will. So let's kind of dive into some other topics. I want to start today with a little economics and how this economics actually feeds into other themes. So while it's fun, again, and there's plenty of this to be consumed where it's the day's news, what's happened today. There's really nothing to learn from today's news, from individual events. Each day's events teach us absolutely nothing. And again, I think media, as it manufactures consent, is really happy for us to consume the daily media without learning. So what would you learn? What is there to learn? The thing to learn is the themes, right? So again, I will use daily events or events from the past few days and from history to pull together themes that I believe support why all of us should want and advocate for maximum liberty. And so we're going to start on one of those right now. I have started reading The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. I'm 100 pages into the edition that I have. It's like about 1,200 pages total. There's 5 books. I'm a good way through, I guess about halfway through the first book. And I'm going to do a whole nother dive into Wealth of Nations later, but kind of happily, the last couple of pages I just read are about how dynamic nations with growing populations and growing wealth are the nations that are doing best. And so Adam Smith, as he's, this is published in 1776, just as the colonies are begging King George to listen to them so they can stay. Remember, our founders didn't want to leave England. It was a last-ditch choice when they felt they weren't being heard. But Adam Smith, this incredible thinker, the father of capitalism, as it were, he notices that the colonies in North America are much more dynamic and are growing their economy and their wealth at a much healthier clip than even England. Eventually, and I know this, I haven't gotten there in the book yet, but I know this, eventually Adam Smith actually gets to the point where he suggests, hey, England, the colonies are more expensive, at least the American colonies or the North America colonies, as he refers to them, are more expensive than they're worth, and you should get rid of them. And he also uses China as an example. Again, this is 250 years ago, China. And saying that, this is a country that has great wealth, but perhaps it's attained all the wealth it's going to get. And that the lack of dynamism, the lack of being dynamic, means that its wealth is not growing. And as the population grows underneath it, which it was, that each day a new person is born, everyone collectively becomes less wealthy. And this is what we refer to commonly as GDP, right? Gross domestic product, which is basically all of the wealth of a nation divided by its people. Okay, so without too many charts and graphs, Adam Smith lays out if you have increasing wealth and it's growing faster than the increase in the population, then every day when a new person is born, everybody's wealthier and the potential for more wealth continues. He also wrote, actually, in a couple paragraphs before this, that the other way to grow your population is through immigration. And he says, the real sign of cultural and economic and national success is through your birth rate, and that immigration is second. Well, that's cool. We'll get to that in a little bit here. I guess we're getting to it right now. That's cool if your birth rate of your nation is above the replacement rate of 2.1 people per basically couple, right? And really the woman that's giving birth. Why 2.1? Well, say we were all still getting paired off. It's not just two people to even replace. You need 2.2 or greater to grow your population. You need 2.1 to maintain. And why? Because not everybody is going to have a child, right? Or multiple children. Some women cannot conceive. Some men cannot conceive. Some women don't want to conceive, right? And I guess you could also say some men don't want to help women conceive. Also, people or children die before they get of age to conceive. So it's not having two children per couple, sorry, just came out, for your replacement rate. It's 2.1 because that 0.1 makes up for all the unpaired people who don't have kids, can't have kids, won't have kids, or never had the opportunity because they never got old enough to have kids. So where is the United States today across the whole country? I will look this up in the future regionally, but as a whole, the United States, along with most of the developed and wealthy world, is in a birth crisis. There are only about 1.7 births in America currently. That's our birth rate, 1.7, not 2.1, significantly under. So the long-term trend would be that, well, is, full stop. Our long-term trend is a declining population if there were to be no more immigration. So currently we're at about 336 million Americans. And I should look that up every day, but it changes, and on your source. I believe, according to the Census Bureau, it's roughly 336 million estimated today. But the question that I want to address is, first, why is the birth rate low and how do we increase it? Well, probably the most important, especially in this country, and I know other countries have healthcare, have universal healthcare, and supplemental private insurance, like Germany, or the two probably not happy cases of single payer England and Canada, they're also facing birth rate crises. But I think theirs are from a overall decline in their economies. That is how their economies are structured, and not because of healthcare. But in America, in the United States, I believe healthcare is one of the reason couples, and women especially, choose not to have children. It's expensive. It is uncertain. It really only comes through your job, and a lot of jobs don't even provide, or if they do provide, it's a minimum portion of the premium, and then you're paying this giant premium out of pocket. And if you have I guess what we call these days, brawn, or we'll say inexpensive premiums for your health coverage, then you probably have a really large deductible. And simply the price of getting pregnant and delivering your child is extremely high. Not even for the small and unfortunate percentage of children that, when they're born, need emergency care or need NICU care, right? So if you are being fully rational, which we never are, but if you're as being close to rational as possible, then you could really understand making the decision to not have children because of your health care. So, well, what is an answer then? An answer has been staring us in the face every day for 80 years now or longer. We need full and complete universal health care with private supplemental insurance. And that, you're like, that's expensive. It will be cheaper. It will be cheaper than what we pay now in the combination of government spending and private spending. And, one of the arguments when we almost got close to having a version of Medicare for all and single payer was the death panels, right? And so we didn't get health insurance because of death panels. But the truth of the matter is we have private corporations that are the death panels. So ProPublica last week published an article by a medical director at Cigna whose job was to review claims. And her bonus didn't come from approving more claims to making sure that American citizens got the health care that they and their doctor thought that they needed. They got the the medical care that Cigna believes they need. And that's obscene. Absolutely obscene. The idea that Cigna and Blue Cross and Anthem and Kaiser should get between your doctor and you for your health care is crazy. But we do it every day. We do it here because people argue what Mark Crossing is arguing, that it's socialism. It's not socialism. First of all, we don't have capitalism in the United States. right? So we have this weird form of capitalism, and it's sort of now an oligopoly with lots of monopolies and corporatism and billionaires who use their money to convince the rest of us that it is, quote, socialist to have something that is our own right, that we already pay for. We already collectively pay for the insurance that we don't get. That's what's unjust. So that's what we need to change. Again, it doesn't matter if you want to vote R or D, but if you're voting for a candidate of any party or no party who's not explaining to you while they're going to go to the mat for you to have universal health coverage, then don't vote for them. Because they're here for the corporatists. They're here for the oligopolists. They're not here for you. They're not here for capitalism. They're here for their own wallets. They just keep getting bigger and bigger while yours gets smaller and smaller. Yeah, I'm a capitalist, but I'm also a realist. The system we have right now, that the CEO of Cigna makes $400 million a year, is crazy. That's $400 million that that's $400 million that people paid in their premiums to Cigna for their health care that they did not get. How is that defensible? It's not. It's absolutely not. So my plea to you, America, if you care about this country, if you care about our birth rate, if you care about growing families again, the choice is obvious. Universal health care and supplemental private insurance. If you make enough money, you actually, by law, get removed from universal health care. And then you do have to pay for your private insurance. As in Germany, that has the best health care in the world. I think they might have been number 3 behind Taiwan and South Korea. But again, those two other countries also have, Taiwan and South Korea have universal health coverage and supplemental private insurance. We spend about 17% of our GDP between private expenditures and public expenditures, what the government already spends. We spend about 17% of our GDP. Germany spends 8%. And they get better results. They have a much healthier population. Now, again, ours breaks down over regions, right? California has much better health outcomes than Mississippi. But I'm here for all Americans. If you live in Mississippi, it's incumbent upon you to say, wait, I've been voting this same way and told it's socialism for all these years, but the hospitals are leaving. The doctors are leaving. My family's getting sicker. And you want to double down on the failed policies because you're afraid of socialism? Don't have fear. Move past the fear. Wonder, why is it that these people keep instilling fear in me when I keep seeing the results are poor? Poor for me, the individual, poor for you. Don't get upset. Don't get mad at the people who are suggesting maybe you should change. Try changing. Ask yourself, what do you want? If you want health insurance that covers you and your family, that you're already paying for, then you would become an advocate for universal health coverage and supplemental private insurance. Does that mean you're going to run for office? No. Does that mean we're going to have a national referendum? No, because we don't have that. We have representative government. But that means when you go to vote, find the candidate that says this is what they're going to deliver. And again, this is the prism of maximum liberty. So you want to increase birth rates above 2.1? Let's get the healthcare that we deserve as Americans. Ooh, here's another fun one. Why is the birth rate declining, and why is it probably going to go further off the cliff? Well, that's easy. The lack of access to abortion. If you want, this might sound counterintuitive, but of course it's not. If you want the birth rate to at least stop falling and potentially to rise again, you would be fully in support and advocate for a woman to have full bodily autonomy of her whole life, and certainly while she is pregnant. Again, we keep creating fear that then stops us from doing the things we want. People want to have families. They don't have a family because they don't have health care, or it's expensive, or they're afraid they're going to lose it. They don't have a family because they're afraid of getting pregnant when they don't want. So they just won't get pregnant. It's not about using abortion as the ultimate family planning tool. It's about it being there for a last resort, for a fully autonomous woman to achieve her maximum liberty, to understand that they are her choices and she has to live with the consequences, whether it's regret or happiness or doubt, or knowing that by making this incredibly tough choice that there's a future of more children or children at all. And this is even just besides, the fear of abortion because someone in your family gets raped, right? Like, people get pregnant unexpectedly, even when they're doing everything they can to not get pregnant, whether it's using a condom or some sort of birth control. Nothing's perfect. No one's perfect. And you're like, well, abstinence, it's just not human. If you want to be abstinent, then be abstinent. If you don't want to use birth control, don't use birth control. If you don't want to get an abortion, don't get an abortion. But for the rest of us, it's our life. It's our choice. Again, let's get to these ideals, right? It's just a choice. Who are you to tell someone else what to do? How do you actually wake up in the morning and think that you know what is best for someone else? You don't. At best, you know what is best for you. So focus there. And I'll support you, and I hope you support me, and I'll support everyone. But this idea that your morals and ethics say abortion is wrong at any time, or even if you want to be the one to define these excuses of when and where, your morals and your ethics are yours, and they're not as high as you think they are. Your morals and ethics, if you believe abortion should be illegal and that a woman should not have full autonomy as a human being, you should really try and understand your own morals and ethics more. I personally don't think they're very high. I think you're shooting low and that you could shoot higher and that you could understand it's not about you. It's about each and every one of us and that you trust the other. I trust the other. I trust you. I'm not going to let you coerce. I'm not going to let you force. That's where we're going to disagree. But if you want to live your way, live your way. Okay. So again, themes, the rubric, maximum liberty. Well, say we can't get the birth rate back over 2.1. Say we do get universal health care and supplemental private insurance. Yay. Say we get beyond what Roe versus Wade even was and an actual, not even legislative, I would argue, hopefully, a constitutional right for bodily autonomy, especially as it relates to abortion. Say these happen, our economy is still growing, opportunity still happens, but we do not achieve Adam Smith's wish that growth is happening so much that the birth rate is high enough to be above replacement. Say we're stuck at 2.1 or below. Well, how do you get more Americans? Immigration. And I'm excited as I look at the comments in my stream. I know that many of them are from immigrants, oddly on different ends of a political spectrum, if there were to be one, but they are both indeed immigrants. One coming very young, one coming as a young adult, but immigrants nonetheless. And we need more of them, of every stripe, from everywhere, because we need more Americans. If you believe in the United States, and again, you have some belief in capitalism and economic growth, and you want that unending growth, not just for the sake of growth, but for the sake of increasing wealth. If you want increasing wealth, which should be the goal, then you're going to want more Americans. You want immigrants. And I had the opportunity a long time ago. When I said I was a history major, I was actually going to be a double major in history and Spanish. And I was going to study the Southwest United States. I got into comm studies, I dropped Spanish, and here we are today. But again, understanding the waves of immigrants and what they go through, there's universal themes. The Guatemalan immigrant making the trek by foot to cross the border is highly similar to an Irish person getting on a boat 150 years ago or longer and sailing across the ocean, or Southern Europeans and other Europeans coming at the turn of the 20th century, the end of the 1800s and early 1900s. Those stories of immigration, of that first immigrant, the first generation immigrant, are pretty much the same. And the most notable thing to me about that first generation immigrant is that they're risk takers. They left it all behind. We could be like, they were desperate, but everybody in their community is desperate, and not everybody leaves. To be the one that leaves the desperate situation means that you are a risk taker. And that's who we want here. And I'm even going to narrow it down a bit to help explain some that risk taker isn't just immigrants from foreign countries coming to the United States, but we have communities all over the US that are shrinking and have been shrinking for a long time. And the people they lose, and you know who you are, and you know if you stayed. But if you left, you were probably a risk taker, because leaving home, no matter where your home is, leaving home is incredibly hard. And to do so means you have something special inside. And I'm not saying people who stay don't have something special inside. They have something different. They want to make the best of what's there. They're tied. But if you leave, if you want to risk it all, there's something different in there. And it's a difference I celebrate. And again, I think culturally we all should, right? I'm not here saying this is what I believe in, it's cool. I'm here saying you too, if you have an inkling that this makes sense to you, then grab onto it. Say it out loud. When you hear someone else disparage the immigrant, say, yo, no, man, you are wrong. Immigrants are vital to this country. They always have been, and they always will. Again, I was talking to a friend of mine who's from Missouri, and part of the conversation around this is that, he grew up 40 miles outside of St. Louis, truly in the middle of nowhere, where the next neighbor was 8 miles away and their next neighbor was 8 miles away. And there were no others. They were barely the same. They didn't even see their own people, but certainly they didn't see anybody different from them. And he's one of those, immigrants himself, right, to California. He left Missouri and he came here, and he's not going back. But having this discussion with him was really touching on, just because is that you get to this thing where you don't like what you're not familiar with, what you've never seen before. But that's not on what you have never seen or never experienced to explain to you why it's okay. Right? It's not on the immigrant to come to you and go, I'm not a threat. Especially if the immigrant's not going anywhere near where you are. But why, on the flip side, would you be sad or mad or threatened or fearful of something you've never met, of something that you'll probably actually never come across? Why are you worried? What is it inside you that drives you to be frightened of people that you've never met? So come to California. No, yes, you can. If you yes, you can. Yes, if you can travel, go see other things. So I admit my purview growing up here my whole life was there were always immigrants. I went to school with 1.5 generation kids. First generation kids that were born in foreign countries and came here. A lot of 1.5 generation kids that I guess were still born in foreign countries, but they came here so young that sort of this bridge. And then second generation kids, the children of immigrants. That's just the way it is here. And even people here fight it. My own father does. And I think he's wrong. And do I just think he's wrong and shrug my shoulders? No, I tell him he's wrong. And that's what I'm advocating that you advocate. If you know that immigrants are good human beings and human beings deserving of dignity just because they're a human being like the rest of us, then advocate for them. If you believe in America and our continued success and more wealth for more of us, then the only answer is more immigrants. If you want to see the end of America, get rid of the immigrants. Project 2025. If you support that, you're not saying you want more success for America. You are saying America reached its zenith and it's all down here from here, and we're going to fight over scraps because you're only going to be left with scraps. You're not going to have more. Again, you're like, what is capitalism? You throw around words like socialism. Capitalism is increasing, growing wealth. If you're not increasing and growing wealth, you are failing. And so you need the people for the labor, but you also need people who don't just want to labor. You need the producer who's going to take risks. And a lot of those people are immigrants and the children of immigrants. I want to see America continue to be the beacon on the hill, to be the most successful country on the face of the earth. We have a long way to go to be the most, to have the most liberty. We have a long way to go to ensure that we each have the capacity to achieve the most happiness we can, but we have to fight for it. And I believe in the fight. I believe we can get to these ideals based on texts and books that he himself clearly does not understand. Again, just wrong and selling you a path of fear. Jordan Peterson, who's not even an American. He's a Canadian. The dude is a Canadian. He should take his ideas back to Canada. And I'm not kidding when I'm talking that revolution today is for those of us who live our lives in the United States of America. I don't care about the rest of the world. I wish them well. I hope they get to have a document like we do, and that they fight for their self-determination, and that if they do decide for self-determination, that they too decide for maximum liberty, so that all 9 billion humans, I guess 8 billion, get to live the life that they want. But I'm here to just talk to us in the United States. And I realize I'm only speaking English right now because I never finished learning Spanish. So if you're out there and you speak Spanish or Tagalog or Chinese or Vietnamese or Korean, Italian, help me, join me, help spread this message. And what was I saying? Oh, yeah, toxic masculinity. Yes, Jordan Peterson, a Canadian, telling American boys and men how they should live their lives. No, it's not cool. Andrew Tate, just vile. We are at the point where I've seen this before, not from Andrew Tate, but he actually posted this last week, just as the Romanian court said that his trial for rape and human trafficking can go forward. He posted, if you are having sex out of wedlock or to not make a baby, you are gay. What? First of all, there's nothing wrong with being gay, right? So him using a slur, number one, that's a good place to start with what's wrong. And he needs an other. If he feels that he needs an other in order to be a full person, and it's sad. He's a pathetic person. Andrew Tate and his need to define an other makes him sad, makes him fearful. And if you're following Andrew Tate, you should really ask yourself, why? Are you sad, or do you want to be sad? Are you fearful, or do you want to be fearful? It sounds like an awful way to live. You can change. You don't have to live like that. He can change. We can all change, right? I am doing this because I have hope. And I've always had it. But now I'm excited to share my hope with you. So yeah, it's scary out there. There are no guarantees. You are promised nothing. But you are making a mistake if you think you were promised something. If you think the accident of your birth that put you in these United States, that might have given you white skin, that might have given you a dong, makes you entitled to something, you are wholly wrong. And if someone tells you, because you got those three things, you are entitled, you're listening to a fool and you're going down a fool's path. And you should step off that path. You should look up and see if there's a new direction or a new path, or cut your own path, which is my ultimate argument for each of us, man and woman, or however you identify your person. Cut your own path, because the fear is always going to be there, because nothing is guaranteed. Okay, two things are guaranteed: taxes and death. We're all going to have the same outcome. But we don't all get there the same way. And these white men are selling you that there is only one way. And I'm going to go again back to when I gave the example of, if you live in Mississippi and you complain about your healthcare, but you keep voting for the same people over and over and getting the same result, and then when someone suggests, hey, maybe you should change, and you're like, well, I'm not going to change. You're going to keep getting the same result. You're going to get angrier and angrier. But at a certain point, you have to recognize it's on you. Boys, young men, if you are today on the path of following a Joe Rogan or a Jordan Peterson or a Ben Shapiro or Andrew Tate, you're on that path because you already feel everything is against you and you're not going to succeed because you haven't been succeeding. We never hear of the success stories of the people who follow those men, by the way. They are their own success stories, more power to them. But we never hear success stories of the people who follow their way because there are none. It works for the four of them. It will not work for you. What's going to work for you? I actually don't have the answer, but I have some clues on how you can find out what's going to work for you. And again, this is the cultural change. This is actual personal responsibility. You actually absolutely know what is best for you. The corollary to that is you don't know anything that's the best for the person next to you. So don't pretend. Stop being obnoxious. There's a smugness to these other men in how they tell you there's one right way. I guess some of you find it appealing and like, oh, they tell it like it is. No, they're being smug. There is no right way. Conformity is killing us. Conformity is killing you. If you want to conform, cool. It is what it is. I mean, I don't really do all these sorts of crazy things. I'm sure I'm as much a conformist as anyone, but I don't force it on people. And the things that maybe I don't conform on or conform with, I certainly don't force others to. It's a higher moral calling. It's a higher ethical calling. And again, it doesn't matter if you believe in God or lots of gods or no God or a different flavor of the same God as the guy down the street. It doesn't matter. Our humanity is all that we have. If you believe in God, God gave you humanity. That's the ultimate gift. Why are you blowing it? And again, if there is this dude in the sky, that he is the only one that gets to judge. And he's very clear about it. You don't judge. Live your life. You've been granted this most amazing gift. Use it. And again, it's a gift that comes without instructions. You're always having to figure it out. And even the things you thought you figured out, you're going to have to figure out again. And things you learned that were wrong, you're going to have to unlearn. That's being a man. Trusting yourself, trusting others, loving yourself, loving others, no matter what. That's being a man. Spread the word. Advocate for it. When you start to spread that word, women are going to take note. That is a man who actually believes in himself, his humanity, and there's a chance that he'll believe in me and my humanity. Because if you want a partner, that's what a partnership is. Making each other better and stronger and more understanding. And if Adam Smith was about capitalism and growing wealth, well, Lauren Collin is about growing self and growing love. That's what a man does. A man loves. Man has to have muscles. A man doesn't cry. That's whining. They're actually whining. We're in this most ironic postmodern moment that the big tough guys explaining what masculinity is to us are whining. The way to be a man is to be yourself, to love yourself, and to love others. And if you have hopes of finding a partner and creating a family, then you have to go on this journey. Because if boys and men and young men and you find yourself amongst this group are following the path of a Shapiro or a Rogan or a Tate or a Peterson, you're going to find that you have less and less opportunity of finding a woman or a partner. They're not having it anymore. Why should they? Why should they care to go and seek someone who doesn't think that they have the ability to be fully themselves. That they are not a fully autonomous person. That they cannot achieve whatever it is that they want. That they cannot have the ability to fail and succeed over and over. Get rid of the toxic masculinity. Stop following these men who are selling you fear and one way to live, because they don't know. They figured out what's for them and they're trying to package it as what's for you. And I can guarantee you it's not. Again, they have no evidence. They can't point to any evidence of people who have followed their way and found success or found actual happiness or found a partner because they did what Jordan Peterson said. It doesn't exist. Don't be a fool. Don't. So again, taking it back to our, hey, we all love capitalism in this country. Go Adam Smith. How do you continue to achieve greater and greater wealth? Well, your population, or partly a result of your greater and greater wealth, is a ever increasing population. And we currently have a very low birth rate, about 1.7. So we talked about ways of how we can increase that birth rate. Themes, right? Healthcare. We should all argue for and vote for representatives. And in our direct democracy states, vote for true universal healthcare with supplemental private insurance. We talked about, if you want to increase the birth rate, abortion should be safe and legal everywhere in the 50 states. And a woman, more importantly, this is the actual important part, a woman must have. We must provide what their dignity already provides, the full autonomy of their body to choose and decide what they are going to do with their health care and what they're going to decide to do while they are pregnant. That's how you stop the birth rate from continuing to fall. That is how you potentially even get it to go back up. We talked about, if you want the birth rate to go back up, you need to have more people who are willing to pair off and have babies. Men, if you want to be part of that equation, drop the Shapiros and the Rogans and the Tates and the Petersons. They are bad for your love life. They're bad for your sex. They're bad for you wanting to have a family. If those are the things that you actually want, you got to find a different way, because you've already shown when you go down that way, you keep getting further and further away from that is what you want. So wake up, get off that path, look around, choose a new one, or cut out your own. And then, hey, say we do all these wonderful things and the birth rate magically does not shoot back up, which again, probably in our post-consumer, super wealthy economy, it might never get back up over 2.1. But what can we do as a country to ensure our continued success and our continued growing wealth? More immigrants. Don't say, oh, the legal kind. Well, let's make all immigrants legal. That's easy. Oh, they have to come from so-and-so, or they have to have a PhD. No, they don't. Absolutely not. Again, history proves you wrong. History proves the more we take of everyone at every different level, the more success that we have as a country. And that's what we should all be aiming for. Continued growing wealth for all means continued immigration. I'm going to say it one more time, maybe more clear for the mic. Continued growing wealth for all means continued growing immigration. And immigrants make great Americans and their children and their grandchildren. I want to talk a little bit about the lying. The constant lying as discourse. The I can speak my truth, damn the facts discourse. It's sad. It's depressing. Again, as a non-religious person, my view of it, and I could be wrong, and you, the audience, can help correct me, but as a non-religious person, my view of what I see in the media that is pushed in front of me, or rather people jump and want to make sure I know they know that they believe this, is that they believe lies. And that the people that seem to really believe these lies will also immediately say that they are a Christian. To me, it seems like rank hypocrisy. I don't know where in the Bible God or Jesus argues that you should lie for what you want. I don't think there's one example of God saying, yo, David, lie and you're going to get what you want. Yo, Solomon, lie and you're going to get what you want. Jesus telling the disciples, go forth and lie and spread the good word. If you are lying about the world as a means to an end, you're not a good Christian. You're not doing your faith. If you wonder every day why there are more and more religious nuns, N-O-N-E-S, and fewer Christians, it's the lying. It's the hypocrisy. And I will give you my own tiny anecdata. I am not a religious Jew because of the hypocrisy I saw growing up. All of these people around me who were trying to explain what religious Judaism was, that there's these rules and God gave you rules and this is how you live your life, and none of them doing it. None of them. They're good people. But it's the hypocrisy, right? Again, who are you to tell me to live a certain way? Not only a way that I don't agree with, but you're telling me to live a way that you don't even do it yourself. Yes, Segundo. I agree, and I said that earlier, right? If you are religious or a Christian religious, right? God's very clear. It's not for you to judge. It's for him. So leave the judging behind and do the loving. Right? Again, if you believe that Christ came and is God and is the Son of God, and there's so many different versions of Christianity, and you all argue amongst yourself, about what's right and blah, blah, blah. So either Jesus is God, or Jesus is the Son of God, or he is God and the Son of God at the same time. His message was simple. Love. Don't judge. Love. Keep the judging to the one who can. And so if you're out there in this real world of flesh and bone lying because you think you're doing God's work, you're not. God's not asking you to lie. And if you're going to tell me that God is asking you to lie, I don't think you're talking to the right God. Right? Or there's something wrong with your God. If your God is telling you to hit the streets and say that there was electoral malfeasance, that the election was stolen, you're not a good person. You're in a club and you might like being in that club, but you're in a club with other people who aren't good people. Now, the cool thing about my message is you can leave that club. You can even turn to the other people in that club and tell them, yo, we were wrong this whole time. We need to stop lying. Because there's no evidence for your position. There's one man running around screaming that he got screwed. So you're telling me that in 2020, the Democrats, this is not even the Democrats. You're telling me in 2020, all of the elected Republicans for every office but president, they won fair and square. There was no election interference. It was just this one office that had happened. Do you see how stupid it is? Do you ever listen to yourself? Do you wonder why you get mocked? And I'm not here to mock you. I wish they wouldn't mock you. But do you understand? Do you see it? Lying makes you a bad person. Believing the lies of others when you know them to be untrue also makes you a bad person. You don't actually have to spread the lie. Your act of believing the lie in the face of the actual truth makes you a bad person. You can change. And I'm here to engage you on why you should. Because I believe in you. I believe you deserve to live a life without fear. I believe you deserve to live a life surrounded by love. But you gotta give to get. You have to start with yourself. That's where the responsibility lies. It's in your heart and your mind to be the person that accepts yourself first. Accepts the world around you might not be what you want, but it is what it is. And lying about it doesn't change the world. If you want to change the world, then get out there and advocate for it. But using a lie to force others is morally and ethically wrong. It takes us to a bad place. Part of healing of this nation is getting past that it's okay to live the lie as truth. It's not okay. It's wrong. You can disagree with the outcomes. You can want different outcomes, but you need to work honestly towards them. it's troubling that so many people run around saying the election was stolen. And we're heading for it again. And again, what do you do in 2022, right? So if the elections were stolen, wouldn't the powers that be, the secret cabal that's running everything, why would they have let the Republicans take the House? It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. You make no sense. I'm asking you to have a complete worldview, to pull all of the pieces together into a cogent, coherent story. But it's on you. If you choose to believe the lie, I can't do anything to you to get you to unbelieve it other than to talk to you, to explain to you why that's wrong. Why it's just weird that you tell me that you have this moral and ethical perch because of a title you gave yourself, Christian. You gave that title to yourself. No one's given that title to you. But you've given this title to yourself, and you say, oh, because I'm a Christian, I have morals and I have ethics. And then you choose to lie every day or to believe the lie every day. That's not Christian. That's not getting you closer to God. That's not getting you into heaven. Wake up. Look around. Take a breath. We'll do that third one. You don't need to lie to get to the world that you want. And if you are lying to get to the world that you want, you're doing it wrong. And if you are following people who lie to get to the world that you and they want, you're all doing it wrong and you're following the wrong person. God does not act in funny ways and choose awful people. Awful people abuse the name and word of God to get what they want. Stop doing it. It's not a good look. You're going to continue to lose your religion with the lying and the hypocrisy. And this lying and hypocrisy that plays out in the everyday world, in our civic world, we all see it. And most of us are grossed out by it. And I'm not judging you to be a bad person without hope. I'm saying if you want to demonstrate to me what I think it means when you tell me you're a Christian, it means you wouldn't be lying. And it means you wouldn't be believing the lies. So show me. Show me that you can accept the facts as they are. As upsetting as they to you might be, that you can accept the hard facts, the facts of life. Or at least in this case, the facts of how the election went in 2020. That it was not stolen, that it was not rigged, that there was not a cabal, that votes were not flipped, that votes were not stuffed, that dead people didn't vote, that non-citizens voted. Not one piece of evidence exists for any of that. So stop doing it. Show me you are the Christian that you claim to be. And again, I'm not the real judge of this, but I could just imagine that if you have to end up in front of a judge at the end of your life, they're not going to say, oh, that was really good of you to lie about the 2020 election. Pearly gates are going to open. How demeaning to your God to think like that. But that's what you're showing the world. That's how you are acting. And again, if that's how you want to act, you can. I can't force you not to. I'm not here to force. I'm not here to force. I'm not here to coerce. I might be here to maybe help you transform and find a better way to persuade, but I'm not here to force or coerce. But it's a bad look. The number of non-citizens that voted in 2020 and 2022 was 0. The number of ballots that were stuffed in 2020, I believe, was only one election in either North Carolina or South Carolina. Literally, like adding votes for a Republican. It was so bad that the local registrar had to call a new election. That's bad. It happened once, but again, it got figured out. So instead of creating fear of the system, you mean the system's actually working as expected? The baddies do get caught? In fact, there's so little bad that it actually, if there were bad going on, there's so little of it, it doesn't change the outcome, right? It's not just a matter of, oh, there's bad. There has to be enough bad to change the outcome. But the reality of the world is there's very little bad, so little bad it's minuscule that it's impossible to even get near considering that the outcome is being affected. But if you run around pretending that it's otherwise, that the elections are rigged, that there's a cabal controlling the elections, that there are bad actors changing votes and stuffing ballots, then you tear down the whole system, which maybe that's what you want, right? You don't want the system we have. You don't want the Constitution. You don't want a federal republic. You don't want representative democracy. Because if you wanted our Constitution, if you wanted a federal republic, if you wanted representative democracy, then you would say, my God, the whole system is working exactly as expected. In fact, in 2020, better than it ever did. If you have the opposite view, you are living in a fantasy land of lies. It's not a good place to be. Wake up. Come, join us in the real world. You don't have to be happy about it. You could say, gosh, I really wish more people voted for my guy, but they didn't. Maybe next time. Because what we want is the next time. Or at least that's what I want. If you're saying that we have rigged elections, I assume it's because at the end, it's not that you want to make the elections unrigged. You don't want elections. So let's talk about it. Explain it to me. Help me understand. Do you want the end of elections? Or do you want to make sure elections are not rigged? Oh, you want more elections. Okay, then admit the truth that our elections are clear and fair and work as expected, and do the things necessary to make it stronger, to make sure that we all have our right to vote, to strengthen the democracy and our representation within it, that we all have an affirmative right to vote. Let's do it. Let's get there. So let me know, are you for the next election, or are you just for no more elections because they might be rigged? I want to know. Tell me. Explain to me. And let's fix our democracy, our representative democracy. Let's grow it and make it stronger. Prove to me which it is, and I will meet you where it is, where we come together to make it stronger for everyone. Let's do it. Speaking of which, without our affirmative right to vote, there are plenty of people out there who actively fight to make sure that even if we have an election, they make it as difficult as possible to vote. And it's really state by state, sometimes even county by county. So there is a story out of Florida, and I'm not picking on Florida, just using it as an example and ultimately a call to action. As we finish the primaries that we have now, and we head towards the election in November, it is incumbent upon you, the voter, to make sure that you are registered. And I beg you, if you think you're registered, even if you voted successfully in the previous election, you might have been unregistered by your local government or your state. And I beg you to go to your state registrar or your county, or however it's done in your state and county, and you look it up and you confirm that you indeed are registered and you have established residency in the place that you want to vote. And once you're done doing that for yourself, I want you to go to everyone in your household who is over the age of 18 and get them to stop scrolling for 1 second. And when they stop scrolling for that 1 second, you're going to get them to confirm their voter registration. And they're going to say, I voted last time, and it was fine. And you're going to say, well, you know what? There are a lot of people out there who work really hard to make sure that you can't vote in this upcoming election and don't let you know beforehand. So because we don't have an affirmative right to vote today, you're going to have to take the responsibility for yourself. So you've checked for yourself, and now you go up to every person in your household who's 18 and over, and you sit with them and you have them check. And if they have to make an update to register, have them make that update. And if they've never registered, now's the time. Okay. So you've checked for yourself. Am I still registered? And you've confirmed it or you fixed it. And now you've gone to everyone in your household and you have worked with them and you watched them. You have watched them confirm that they are voting or ready to vote in whatever the upcoming election is, where they live. And if they aren't, they fix it. Or if they've never registered or the registration is way expired because maybe their residency has changed, they register. And then you give them a high five. All right. So what are you going to do next? You're going to leave your house and you're going to go to work. You're going to see all these people at work. And you're going to say, coworker, have you checked your voter registration, and they're going to say, I don't vote. And you say, ooh, you really want to, you want to register. Or they're going to say, ooh, I voted in the last election. And you're going to say, yeah, that's all fair and good. But did you know that depending on the county and state where we live, people are actively working to remove eligible voters from the voter roll? And the only way to know for sure is for you to double check. And they'll be like, what? And you'll be like, look, you want a break from work, right? And they're going to be like, duh, who doesn't? Great. This is the perfect break from work. Go to your local registrar, whether it's done at your county or your state or however it's done, and you sit with your coworkers, and you have them check their registration, and you have them fix any mistakes. And if they've never registered before, you have them fix that registration. So you've done yourself, you've done everyone in your household, you went to work, you helped out your coworkers. Maybe tonight after work, you're going to the bar for a drink. Maybe it's a softball league. Maybe it's a little bowling. Maybe it's evening book club. But it's now time to hang out with friends. And real friends make sure their friends are registered to vote. It's an ancient saying, an ancient saying. But that's what you're going to do. You're going to say, friends, have you checked your voter registration lately? Are you registered to vote? And if they say, I'm not registered to vote, well, that's an easy conversation. Let's get you registered. And if they're like, not only am I registered, I vote in every election. Cool, that's great. Let's make sure you're set up to vote in the upcoming election, because states and counties work really hard to remove otherwise eligible voters from the rolls. And because we don't yet have an affirmative right to vote, we really need to confirm that our registration to vote is correct. So you're going to get out your phone and have them get out their phone, and you're going to say, hey, let's do this thing. And you sit with them and you make sure that your friends are registered and registered correctly for these upcoming elections to finish the primaries and to get ready to vote in November. Because people are working really hard to not steal your vote, but to steal your right to vote. And having these conversations with your friends is also a great time to explain to them why we need a constitutional amendment and an affirmative right to vote. So that in every election that you are a resident of, you just get to vote. And we can get there. And we can get there by making sure we're using the current system and maximizing our voice. And then we get there next by finding people who want to advocate for this position, who believe in each of us, who believe in the United States of America, who believe in the ideals of our forefathers, and that while they came way short of living up to them, we can get there. But it's work. But we got to do that work, and we got to advocate for that work. Okay. About 10 minutes left in today's live stream. I do appreciate everyone who's been viewing and watching and commenting. And I look forward to more of your comments and to steadily increasing our viewership. But I'm going to spend the last few minutes here talking about crime and fear, and our fear of non-existent crime. So on the old TikTok, I've been seeing ads for apps, more than one, but definitely one in particular, But for apps that are, a concerned young face, a very young Gen Z, or I'm sorry, let me try it one more time, an older Gen Z, or a very young millennial, we'll say a 20 or early 30s something, shows up on a map, in theory, a crime map, or they call it a safety map. And they're usually smart enough, I assume, with the AI making the commercial to put this floating face that has the same voiceover over a map of an area near you, putting what obviously amounts to fake data, fake robberies, fake murders, fake rapes, fake car burglaries, fake bank robberies, just fake. Because they know, like the nightly news, that they can prey on your fear. I think these apps are absolutely pernicious and disgusting. The only app that would make sense would be a trends app. And maybe we can get Apple to add this to iOS and Google to add this to Android, like the weather app. Ooh, this is my product manager hat dropping on. Maybe we can get someone to add a story in their backlog. It's about the trends, people. It's not about fear. Especially if fear lets you think that you're in more danger than you really are, that there's an other out there that's going to scare you and harm you when there isn't one, and then you live in fear. Your happiness is decreasing when you live in fear. If you were to download and install this app, you would be giving in to fear. Because the truth is, we are safer today than we have ever been in the United States. Is it true for every single city? No. St. Louis sounds pretty bad. Certain places in the South and Alabama and Mississippi sound really bad. But by and large, if you live in a large city anywhere in the United States, if you live in a large suburb anywhere in the United States, if you live in a large exurb anywhere in the United States, pretty much all form of crime has dropped dramatically in the last 4 years. It peaked in 2020 and it is gone down significantly now. So low, in fact, that it is the safest we've been since the government started keeping records. Now, the truth is, even in 2020, when the former guy was still president, even during the spike, because there was a spike under him, but the trend under him was increasing crime. Even at the peak of the trend under him, it was still historically really low crime. What? Yes. Since the gang scourge of the 80s and 90s, crime has been dropping precipitously. Also, and Los Angeles is an example, probably the best example. Crime has been dropping steadily, while the size of the police department is not only not going up, not even holding steady. The size of the Los Angeles police department has been going down. While the population of LA increased by well over 50% from 1989 to 2020, there used to be around 12,000 LAPD back then. Now there's fewer than, I believe, 9,500 or something roughly around there. We have fewer cops and greater safety. Don't live by fear. Don't let the fearmongers win. Question everything. What is their motivation to sell you fear? What do they get when you buy from them? What is it in your heart that makes you want to buy it and not question it? What makes you want to say there's another out there who wants to harm you when all the evidence points to the fact that that's just not the case? The reality is people don't care about you like that. Crime is going down. Murders are down. Rapes are down. Car break-ins are down. Robberies are down. Property crimes of all types are down. Again, in most major cities, without any increase over decades of the size of the police force. But you know what is way down and has been significantly down for years, for the last 4 years? Unemployment. So we'll go back to where we started with Adam Smith and growing wealth for everyone. And my belief that if we want to continue to win this next century, we need new ideas and bold ideals. And that through the framework of maximum liberty, we can find these new ideas and implement them and achieve continued growing wealth and expanding the wealth of the United States for all of us. For all of us. Quick note to fill the last few minutes. And a step in the right direction here when it comes to justice and police reform and not being afraid is finally, and just in time for the election. Oh, politics. We hear that President Biden is ordering the FDA to finalize the rules to reschedule good old marijuana from a Schedule 1 drug where it is completely illegal to have and to use with great criminality and punishment that comes with either using it or having it, to Schedule 2. Where it is still not seen as a good thing, where it is still not properly regulated or taxed, but it is not illegal to have and it is not illegal to use. That's a great first step. For maximum liberty, the real answer is to legalize all drugs, regulate all drugs, tax all drugs. So we celebrate victories. Yay, step in the right direction. Moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2 at the federal level, getting more in line with the factories of our federal democracies, the states, right? So we've had for up to 25 years here in California, where we started with medical marijuana. There was always a clash with the federal government. And it seems like that clash is finally, sensibly, after nearly 100 years of the original war on marijuana, the first war on drugs, finally, mercifully starting to come to an end. And that, America, that's something to celebrate. But again, it's just the beginning. The advocacy picks up there. And if you believe that we can be our best with maximum liberty for all, then let's get there. And let's start advocating for no more vice laws, that all drugs, marijuana, cocaine, in all its forms, I don't do enough drugs, I guess, mushrooms, opiates, that they are legal, that they are regulated in how they are produced and how are they sold and how they are distributed. Oh my God, you want to end the cartels? Well, not really ending the cartels. They just go from scary sounding cartel to pharmaceutical company. But hell, whatever, man. To fewer deaths on the street, let's do it. You add that plus what we talked about earlier, universal healthcare. That's how you make a healthy, happy population that can succeed, that can live, that can love. And that is where I continue to hope to engage with each and every one of you. And I'm looking forward to doing it more and more each day and growing this audience and growing these conversations and seeing if we can't find more common ground than not on what it means to live up to the ideals that were offered to us here in the United States and to really achieve them, to turn ideals into reality. And I'm here for it. And I hope you are too. And as we always say here at Revolution Today, no fear, only love. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.